Good
Hey,
morning,
Matt.
Nicholas.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, 11:18. My computer decided to restart just at the moment we were going to go live. I'm so sorry. Uh,
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure some of our dozen of viewers or whatever, a dozen live viewers at least were disappointed, but I'm better late than never.
I know.
I saw a story. I saw a story this week. Durex condoms. Durex condoms, which apparently is a very big name in the condom industry, is trying to do live streaming in China, and they're getting pushback.
Oh, wow.
The condom market in China is $5 billion. $5 billion,
Wow.
and they're trying to get into live streaming. Thoughts?
I definitely want to see that live stream. I cannot. Yeah, that probably will be very funny to watch.
Live streaming is all about demos. So
Yes.
what could they possibly do? I
I,
don't know.
is that going to be like a stream on OnlyFans, or is it going to be like I'm curious, like so
What
so
could it possibly be? It definitely stopped me in my tracks.
what could go wrong? Anyway,
Exactly.
let's start. Hi everyone, this is Nico, the co-founder of eStreamly and your co-host of the Vcommerce Show. I am with my great friend Matt from E6 Marketing, the company that gets you on QVC and HSN. Sorry again for being a little late today. I was having some technical difficulties, and that's what happened when you do live. Nothing works as you always expect, but that's part of the game, and that's why we're doing it live. How are you, Matt, today?
I'm doing very good. Excited for the weekend.
Absolutely. So why don't you get us started and tell us what the show is about?
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in. This is called the Vcommerce Show. It's a live podcast chat discussing today's top hot topics related to video commerce. Video commerce is a storytelling platform that was created over 50 years ago with TV infomercials and DRTV transformed into QVC and HSN, and has evolved over the last few years into engaging direct response commerce through your television, computer, tablet, or phones. At its best, this conversation should be fun to listen to. At its optimal, you'll learn something new and fun and interesting that will help you go about your day. So, Nicholas, I'm excited to get started with you. One of the stories I saw this week that I wanted to talk about was an article that I read about omni-channel shoppers. Omni-channel shoppers being defined as people that still shop in retail versus e-com. And as we know, like COVID kind of changed the dynamic of e-com. Everything went e-com when everything was shut down. But this company called 8451, a Kroger company. So this is a lot about grocery, but I think it's an overall feeling. Did a study over a 52-week span, and they wanted to figure out where that shopper is and where she's working. So among omni-channel shoppers, it was reported 40% do most of their shopping in store, and 40% do most of their shopping online. And then the other 20 shop in store and online equally. So they gave a bunch of different kind of dynamics and what kind of products or what, but it's an overall thought, with e-com and video commerce versus retail. How do you think 2024 is going to shape up?
It's super interesting, right? What struck me in this story. So obviously, 8451. I think that's the digital arm of Kroger. That's their retail media and all that digital thing that they're doing. Super interesting. What I was shocked with that number is like 40% are just doing online. That's a pretty big number. And I'm thinking about company that have decided to purposefully not go online. What does it mean for them? But also, speaking of brick and mortar, we heard about Macy's kind of making some shift recently, right? So obviously they have some store closing, and I do, but regardless of this thing, when I'm thinking about retail and when I'm thinking about online, I do think that retail still have a place and will still have a place. I think people will still want to engage. It's not going to be only online. I think we still crave that human engagement that we all want when we go shopping. But it is super interesting numbers overall, I think.
Yeah, that's the key, engagement. How are you going to engage your consumer? And you should be available in all places. So omni-channel being having a DR, direct response, or an e-com channel, or having the stores available. The big thing in a Kroger, it's an interesting point that it came from a grocery company, because online grocery shopping sometimes can be challenging, because the brand is not there, or the product you want's not there, and then trusting that online shopper to pick the most ripe fruit, or the exact produce that you want. Like it is an interesting dynamic, but almost split down the middle, that they found the consumers are using both, or equally enjoy both. So I think that will continue. The Macy's story, 150 stores closing in the next couple of years, that was a disappointing dynamic. Just kind of illustrates how you have to be very flexible these days, and just kind of I won't say go with the flow, but just be have the opportunity and have the wherewithal to be flexible in where your consumer is shopping.
And I mean, and you're making an awesome point with a fringe of the population, being like you say, being concerned about, do I pick the right product? Do I have the right product? I will say it's very expensive for a lot of groceries retailer, because not only you have the cost of delivery that you need to factor in, and people don't want to pay for it, so you have to figure out a way to make it free. But then, like my wife, like recently, she moved to the the Walmart program, and so we get she get to order online. And like last week alone, they deliver only half of the groceries she had ordered. And so she made a claim, and to as a gesture, they offered us the whole grocery basket, refund the whole thing, as opposed to refund just the item. And because there was like literally maybe 20 item was missing. But I'm thinking from the grocery perspective, that can happen quite a bit. And having like literally, we had over $100 of like free groceries,
Wow.
plus the what we received was grocery from someone else. So I'm like, wow, this is pretty. That is a pretty expensive endeavor. And so I think we saw that Amazon is not Amazon, Walmart is not profitable. They are getting to profitability with their groceries or delivery, but it's still a very expensive things to do. So it's
And obviously food prices are through the roof, and from a grocery point of view, CPG, it's hard now. It's really hard to get into that space. I was thinking about it this morning. One of the biggest categories of QVC, and one category that they thrive in and really do an amazing job, is food. And the storytelling with food, and illustrating what you're talking about, telling your brand story. I think all CPG companies should consider video commerce just as a storytelling platform. When you're in the middle of a grocery aisle and the prices are going through the roof, and every brand looks the same, when you're trying to get through the aisle with a screaming 3-year-old in your cart, all that kind of dynamic, you got to separate yourself. So storytelling, to me, especially with CPG companies, the small ones, the large ones, you've got to separate yourself.
yeah.
And video commerce seems like the natural step to me.
Absolutely. Well, the news I wanted to bring up to your attention, I don't know if you saw, but Temu is in some trouble. So Temu, which is the Pinduoduo in China, there's one U.S. lawmaker, especially a China critic, including one of the Republican. His name is Blaine Lut Mayer, and I'm sorry if he's listening. I don't quite know how to say your last name, sir. But basically, he went on and asked the agency that's the information reporting that the Department of Homeland Security to add Temu into a list of folks that are not in accord with forced labor. And if you are on that list, what it will mean is that Temu will be banned from exporting to the USA. So it's a pretty big deal. If that were to happen, Temu is growing like super fast. What's interesting to me, and no one is really saying about it, but there's the say out there is like, the product that you find on Temu are typically some of the same product that you will find on Amazon as well. And so, I mean, I don't know what that overlap looks like, but what does it, I mean, like at the end of the day, I don't know. I just found it super interesting, and it feels very politically driven to me from my perspective.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I saw a story that Amazon's now, and they did this before COVID. And I think they stopped doing it with owning their own shipping department, and having their own trucks back on the road. I think they've maintained that for a while, but they also outsourced it over the last couple of years with the United States Postal Service and UPS, and they're getting back into that game. Like that whole dynamic is expensive and a money maker for these large companies. How's Temu going to get involved with that dynamic? They're the new kid on the block. Amazon's obviously very well established, so it should be interesting. It's funny that you said that about like versus like, Amazon versus Temu. I haven't shopped Temu, but I've heard that the product is less than. It's kind of like the lower denominator of like less quality. But if it's truly what you've said is, in some situations, it's an apples to apples kind of dynamic. They're trying to compete with the mighty Amazon. That should be interesting.
Yeah, and Temu, I think at the beginning, Pinduoduo is a logistic company that is doing cross-border logistics. So, that's one of their big thing. But speaking of China and non-rosy thing, it also is. I don't know if you saw this article this week from the rest of the world. Great newsletter, great article, where basically a lot of live streaming agency in China are really pushing the boundary a little bit too far. And what's happening is that they're sourcing for their live stream farm a lot of influencers, and some of those influencers, when they source them, they actually have like big contract where they promise them some sort of like support and training and equipment and all that. Not all those agencies are making are really responding well to what they are supposed to do, and sometimes they get the contract and just move on. And so there has been a lot of lawsuit lately about streamers that started to stream for a week or two and then realized that nothing was going right for them, and so say, hey, it's not for me, wanted to exit this contract, and realizing that they are locked into a contract where they have to pay 20, 30, 40, 50 grand to get out of the contract. The problem is so prevalent, and we have to realize in China, we're talking about maybe over 24,000 talent agencies. So it's a big bucket of talent agencies that are really trying to easily recruit a new host. It's a big business there. So much so, in a way, it was like the government had to intervene and pass some regulation in 2021 to ban agencies to target people less than 16 years old. But they had the Supreme Court that tried to address the breach of contract by making limits on how much you can actually request to breach that contract. So I don't know. I just feel it's an interesting conversation. A lot of those streamers are unfortunately not rich. That's why they are going live stream, is because they want to get a better life and want to get. There's a high unemployment rate right now in China. I think they're going through some sort of a crisis. So it's sad to hear that. It's not quite rosy on that side also.
It's such a throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. I saw that article and it kind of shocked me. It kind of the whole dynamic. I read a connecting article about U.S. brands and how U.S. brands are creating secondary brands underneath their umbrella just to to match creators with brands. So I read Shopify, Meta, TikTok, YouTube, and Snap all have secondary brands underneath the umbrella to work with new creators and connect them with brands. So just as you're saying, which say 124,000 different companies in China connecting creators with brands and matching them up for live streaming, it's happening here in the US too. In my world, we kind of bucket And I know it's probably unfair, but this is how it's always been, where if you're a beauty expert, then you can't work outside of that category because you've been trained in that category. The customer knows you from that category. And if all of a sudden you're selling food, it would somehow confuse the customer. I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that, but there's a kind of a segmented way in how, home shopping works with content creators or influencers or on-air guests, a lot of different terms for that person, how they work with them. Like, what's your expertise? What's your experience? What's your passion? And then we're going to put you in a bucket. I think with these influencers, it's just, I've got all these followers, and maybe this is a very unique thing, but I've got all these followers. I want to monetize it. How can I monetize it? And maybe they're not necessarily connected to that brand or even the category. They just have a lot of followers. So from a brand perspective, I could see, listen, I'm paying you all this money and you're not generating any revenue. I get that part, but the part of the article that you didn't mention, but we talked about in the prep of our show here today, was that there's no training in China.
Yeah.
They're not training these people. They're not educating them on what the live stream dynamics is supposed to be. They're not teaching them how to engage with their audience. That is a major factor that they're losing out on.
Yeah. I think I will, to be fair, I think a lot of agencies are trying to train, but like there's also a big number that are just, say they will do the training and maybe they give you a video or something to figure it out. But I think there's this notion of like, oh, you're a creator, you should know better. And it doesn't work that way, right? So
I've got one more quick story on that whole dynamic. Denise Austin is a really big name in exercise, I guess, and wellness. And she's in her 60s now. She's one of the first people. Her and Richard Simmons kind of started the exercise trend in the 80s on television and things like that. She's still a very influential influencer, even at her even in the 60s. She's got a daughter. Her name's Katie, and Katie's got a ton of followers on Instagram and TikTok, and all the younger, and she's got a younger consumer. QVC, she went on QVC last week to sell her treadmill. So it was a Katie Austin treadmill. It was not Denise Austin's treadmill. It was Katie's, who is probably, 28 years old, 26 years old. And I thought the QVC customer or the home shopping customer is a baby boomer. She's 50 to 75 years old. Does she know Katie? Does Katie's connectivity with her audience relate to a QVC consumer where they would trust her? Now, if it was her mother, and that core QVC customer knows her mother very well, she's been on QVC before, she's on HSN, a whole different dynamic. But when you get a 28-year-old influencer, did it move the needle on what she was selling? And she was selling a very expensive treadmill, and she did a wonderful job. I watched the presentation, and she's well-versed and well-trained in how to engage in that whole thing. But what does it mean? Her influencer dynamic, what does it mean to the core customer? So that whole long story, meaning all these influencers looking for connections with brands, you got to have some kind of synergy to make it work. Like, you have to have a synergy, and that could mean a lot of different things, but without synergy, it's just not going to work.
And do you know if it sold? Like, how was the response from the customer?
I wasn't in the studio. I could tell a little bit by watching it. I think it did okay, but not fantastic. So they were giving some numbers on quantity sold and things like that. And for the hour it was on, I was a little disappointed. It should have done better. Nothing to do with Katie. It's just, does the customer know her? And probably the customer knows her as Denise Austin's daughter, which is not who Katie's about. She's about her building her own dynamic. So this whole story is very, very relatable to me, and just working with talent. You got to have the connection between the brand and the influencer.
I mean, on the other side, I think, for QVC and HSN, they gotta bring younger folks too, right? So I'm assuming that's one of the prerogative. If it doesn't sell that great, is it really so much of a problem? I mean, like they need to bring on new folks, and maybe that's their way for them to test out the waters, and probably they do that quite a bit already, I'm assuming. But every now and then they dip their toe into a younger dynamic and they see if it sticks. Their core customer is who she is, and they don't want to aggravate her. They want to cater to her.
So even though they do, up to your point, want to grow their customer base and grow their audience, they're true and loyal to who we call them the 50 plus customer, which is 50 orders or more a year.
But it's so interesting, right? Because we talk about this is obviously in the case of QVC, they are video first, right? But this is a problem that every long-lasting brand have, right? So the brand that have been created like 30, 40, 50 years ago, they are catering to an older age today. And how do we rejuvenate this crowd? And a lot of the folks that I talk to, they come to me and say, hey, we want to leverage the video commerce as the channel to create and cater a younger audience without alienating the current audience that is a little older and consuming the way they are today. And so by creating a channel, I won't say a separate channel, but like creating a different channel for catering that audience, they are able to, start engaging with that younger folks, that younger crowd. In the case of QVC, it must be so difficult because that's the output is the video itself. So you can't really create a separate type of video for this audience. But it is a real problem that, brands that are coming to, after a certain age on the block, they have this problem. Like, how do we cater to younger folks? And
it goes back to our initial story about retail, where 40% come into the store, at least in grocery, and 40% order online. Maybe it's an age dynamic.
Yeah.
Maybe, the older customers are still coming in and the younger ones are ordering it online. It's fascinating. We're definitely in the middle of a shifting dynamic with commerce. It's fun to be a part of and talk about.
So do you have any special shout out for us this week?
So QVC's got a 48-hour fashion weekend coming up starting tomorrow morning at midnight Eastern. They've got a Skechers shoe TSV. So for the next 48 hours at QVC, you can engage with a lot of great dynamic influencers and creators and brand ambassadors talking fashion all day Saturday, all day Sunday.
Awesome. And a special shout out on my side, Extremely will be at Shop Talk. So if you're there, please let us know, and I'll be happy to meet with you all. Great. Well, Matt, it was a fantastic conversation as usual. We will be there next Friday, 11, hopefully this time, on LinkedIn as well as Facebook and X. You can find us there. Search for Nicolas or for Matt or for Extremely, and you will find a link to the show. We are also on the live e-commerce podcast, where we are publishing every Friday and Tuesdays with some specific, unique interviews and conversation about video commerce in general. We are here for you. If you like this show, tell us what we can do to make it better. We always love to hear. Special shout out to Tom, Dan, and John for the like and comment today. We love you guys. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you again next Friday. Bye, Matt.
Bye-bye.